Hey guys, I'm Brandon.
I'm Brigitte.
This is part of our archive of content from our other channel, and if you're looking for it, it's now called
Brigitte Beckley. We'll have new content for you guys soon, but let's just get into the video.
Brandon.
I'm Brigitte, and today we're going to talk about what we would tell our 20-year-old self.
For us, that was 15 years ago, so we're going to talk about if we would have listened at 20, what we would go back and tell ourselves. Ladies first.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokie.
The thing I would tell my 20-year-old self, which was 15 years ago, is that you should be a learner and you should learn to enjoy learning, because if you can learn something, you can do anything. So for instance, I would have definitely wanted to learn a lot more about homemaking stuff. So how to cook from an earlier age, how to clean the house efficiently, how to learn how to do random things around the house, like fix stuff. I feel like being handy is such a lost art these days because everyone's like, oh, just hire someone, oh, just get someone else to do it, oh, just buy a new one, where you can save so much money if you learn how to fix things yourself. Also, I would learn a little bit more about cars because I feel like being a girl, especially if you're single, you go into the mechanic and they look at you and they're like, oh, we can take advantage of this girl. She knows nothing. And I feel like I always had to bring my dad, or when I met Brandon, because they would just assume he was a guy and he knew what he was talking about with a car. And
which is so funny because guys have no idea these days about cars. They know nothing, and they'll get taken advantage of just as much. Our daughter will know how to change a tire
and check your oil and like some like basic stuff in the car. I definitely would have told.
So is that all one thing?
Yes, like learn to learn and learn to love learning and learn to love math, because math is very useful, especially when like you're trying to learn how to save money. So you need to do a little bit of math to figure out which unit price is better. So even if it's lower in like overall price, if you just maybe get a little bit more, you can reduce the cost. And if it's something you're going to use anyways, it's better. So learn to love math too, because if I did
How
not
many are
like
you doing?
math,
I thought we had 3 each. You were giving a bunch.
This is all about learning though, learning.
Okay, so learn to climb mountains. Learn to be an ultrasound tech.
Learn to love learning. Okay, your turn.
Oh, that's a segue. She's like, segue, I'll hit you with a segue.
No, that'd be like...
Okay, well, I'll start off with the controversial ones. My first one, I would go back and tell myself at 20 that I'm making the right decision not to take any student loans. At 20 years old, I was at UCF looking at having no money, and I lost my scholarships. And they were like, oh, well, here's some student loans you can take out. Everybody's doing it these days. This was 2005. Everybody's doing it these days. You can take out student loans. It's just what everybody does. And there's like this huge student loan crisis. And guys, it's not worth it, because honestly, the bachelor's degree I was going to get in political science or English ed, I probably wouldn't be using in any way, shape, or form. And unless you're in a STEM field, bachelor's degrees are a dime a dozen. There is no guarantee, the way they used to be, of getting employment at all, let alone good employment, making good money. Character and experience are what get you good jobs, especially now when everybody went to college. What makes it special? So I'd go back and say, yeah, don't sign that dotted line. I remember sitting in the office of like the student aid person at UCF, and she was like, no, really, like everybody just takes student loans. They have really low interest rates and they're gentle about them. You can pay them off. And I just had this thing in me, and maybe it was from just being poor and never having credit cards. I just was like, no, that feels wrong to me. It feels gross.
Maybe it was the Lord.
It was, so here's the thing, it was definitely the Lord saving me. But it was something that I struggled with for years. Like, I knew I didn't want the debt, but I didn't know how much it would probably have ruined me. Like, I still have that debt. I came into our marriage with some debt, but in the grand scheme of things, looking at the way so many people have piled up debt these days, it was nothing, and we managed it, and it could have been so much worse. We have friends that we love and care for who live in a similar financial way that we do. Very frugal, no debt, but they're paying off hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt, and that's crazy. It's a trap.
And it's just, no matter how hard you work at it, especially if you have kids in the mix, like you haven't paid it off before you had kids, there's only just so much you can throw at it. And if you are talking, you have $200,000+, like you have to have at least a minimum amount to live. And especially like you're talking kids and working, and like you can only pay it off so fast. So you're automatically looking at several years, if not a decade plus, when you both come in with student loans that could be $100,000 each, which you don't think about sometimes when you're 18, 19, 20, and you're just like, oh, well, I go to school, everyone goes to school. And yeah, it's really rough. And I'm really thankful that we both didn't have student loan debt when we came into marriage.
Yeah, and I'm not saying school doesn't matter. I'm definitely not saying don't go to college.
Yeah.
But I'm saying consider if that's the best option for you. If you want to enter into a STEM field, science, technology, engineering, math, Okay? If you want to do that, you probably need a degree. You probably even need an advanced degree, a master's or a doctorate degree of some sort to get a good career in those fields. But that makes sense because you need a lot of information that's mostly attainable in a classroom setting, and those credentials indicate to those people that you have that information. Cool.
Yeah, and the thing to consider is that if you take out X amount of dollars in a student loan, will you be able to pay it off with the money you would be making in that field within X amount of time? Like, I feel like, 2 to 5 years is probably the max I would ever go. So, like, sure, you probably need to take out student loan debts to get your doctorate if you're going to be like a medical doctor. But are you going to be able to pay off with the amount of money you're going to be going in making that student loan debt within the first 2 to 5 years? Because if you're getting a $50,000 degree and you're going to be a teacher and you're going to be making like $35,000 a year, it's probably not worth it because it's going to take you a long time to pay it off. And I just feel like there should be other ways. There are other ways,
Yeah, I don't have a bachelor's degree. You do. You have a BS.
Bachelor's of Science, people.
In radiologic science?
Yeah, radiologic sciences.
I knew a thing.
Yeah.
But that makes sense, right? Because that actually helps your pay in your job. It makes you more likely to get positions you're looking for.
Well, I got that after I already had an X-ray certificate and then got licensed by the state, and also my ultrasound certificate, which you also have to get a license for, and most places won't hire you. Well, they'll hire you without it if you just graduated, but you have to get it usually within 6 months to a year to stay employed at the place, usually.
But having your BS actually helps in your career. But you actually don't even need it.
No.
You could have most of the jobs you've had without it.
Yeah, well, I was working for several years before I got it. I got it while I was working.
Well, and that's the cool thing, right? Like, you got the certificate, the thing you needed to do to punch the clock and have the job and get paid, and then you continue to work on your bachelor's degree. And how much student debt did you have?
None.
$0. So I would have told myself, good move, bud. Don't do that. Spoiler warning, that's probably the only thing I would have said good job on back then.
The next thing I would tell my 20-year-old self is embrace who you are, because I really didn't know what made me me through several relationships and just growing up. I just didn't really know what I was passionate about, and I think some of it comes with age, but I feel like I would have told myself, like, pay attention to the things that light you on fire, that you really love doing, that you really love talking about, and pursue those things, and be comfortable with how you're made. Like, be comfortable with who God made you to be. So I was very shy. I'm very much an introvert. Like, I am not like social, like I walk into a room and, hey, I'm here. Like, that's not
I am.
That is him. I much more prefer to just sit in the background, like watch everyone. Doesn't mean that I'm not having a good time, but I just prefer to not be the center of attention. I feel like I would have embraced it more if I had my future self tell my 20-year-old self, listen, who you are is fine and it's great, and that is how God made you, and that is how you should be. And don't try to be anyone else. Don't try to be some other person. Don't try to, look like them or have the things they have. Like, if those are not the things that you enjoy, and to be wise with those decisions to pursue things that you love. Find out who God created you to be and be that person.
I would say for my second one, I would have told myself that I was okay alone. When I was 20 years old, I was kind of like a serial relationship junkie. I was never into like short dating relationships or dating a few people. I was always like, give me a long-term relationship because I'm going to be with this person the rest of my life, even though I've known them a week or whatever. And then I would fall into really unhealthy, codependent, cohabitating, longer-term relationships with people who were super unhealthy because they have the same habits. We ended up in the same place. And looking back, I know it was because I wasn't okay alone. Part of that was I didn't have a relationship with God at the time, so I didn't know that my identity was in Him and not in what some other person said about me. And if you asked me, I would say, no, I know my identity is not from that person, but like it was. That's how I lived. And I think that's how a lot of us live. And I partially blame Disney because like the Disney fairy tale was always my ideal. Oh man, the scene in The Lion King, can you feel, right? That set my idea of what romance was supposed to look like. And that was the ideal in every movie. That's what our culture taught us. but that actually wasn't God's ideal for me. God wanted me to be with somebody for the rest of my life with whom we had this amazing trust and bond in covenant with him, but I was trying to find it in the wrong place.
Well, that's so true, because that's not how relationships work. It's not this movie romantic, like everything goes perfectly and there's like only one little hiccup and then they get over it and they fall madly in love
There's
and
one
it's like
conflict.
they get married. Like, no, like there are so many more intricacies in a real life good relationship that, yeah, I think being comfortable with who you are, like I was talking about, know who God created you to be and be okay with that and like embrace it. And so sometimes that means being single until God brings you the right person and you guys can have a relationship.
And I would say the same thing to anybody at that age. If you have not been single for a while, just be single. Be okay being single, because a healthy relationship is not made up of two people that get healthy together. A healthy relationship is best made up of a healthy person and a healthy person. And together, they're just a healthy couple.
Right, because you can't have two people who are so dependent on each other, because that person will never fulfill you. There will always be times when you let me down. And I mean, it's happened in the last 9 years or 10 years since we've known each other. Because people don't fulfill people.
Yeah.
God fills people,
Yeah.
and he gives them satisfaction and fulfillment because he created us for him. So trying to find it in a relationship is never going to work. And that is why I feel like when we actually got together, we both were not looking for relationships. We were like, nope, I'm going to be single. Like, just got out of other relationships. We're not dealing with that. Like, no. And then God brought us together and like we met and we were just friends and like didn't have attraction, didn't like be like, oh my gosh, this is person, they're a potential suitor. Like I could see myself with them. No, it was like, we just talked. We had a group of friends. So like we knew each other from that. And so that's kind of how we met and started talking. And we both were not like automatically thinking like, oh, is this the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with? And so it actually allowed us to get to know like the real person, you know, right at the forefront. And it's because we both were trying to just be healthy separately, you know?
What's your number 3?
My number 3 is that he's not worth it. Now, let me clarify this, because obviously you were worth it.
I mean,
But he's not worth it in the sense that compromising your values for him for that one night.
not for me.
No, not for you.
Some do
I'm
when
just
you're
saying-
20.
When I was, yes. I didn't know you when I was 20.
It's true, thank God.
Well, I didn't have my like dark period till like 25, but he's not worth it in the sense that compromising who you are and your values and what you believe your future, you know, what you want for your future, it's not worth that night. It's not worth the decisions you make when you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol. It's just not worth it, because one night can ruin your life. One bad decision can change the course of your entire life. And there are so many times that we've both talked about this, that we're so thankful God spared us in those bad one night decisions, that we were able to have the life we have now, because that one bad decision didn't change our life in a drastic sense. Don't compromise for that person. It's always worth it to wait and to wait for God's best. And it's always worth it to wait to have sex until marriage, because memories don't go away. They can fade over time, but memories are always going to be with you. And I know both of us would agree that we wish we didn't have those memories. Yes, they shaped who we are and how we got to the point where we are. And God has totally redeemed that and has used it. But if I could do it and choose one or the other, I would definitely choose to not have bad memories in that area of my life. So always wait and don't compromise.
Soul ties are a thing.
Yeah.
You make that connection that's meant for the context of marriage in covenant with God. And it's powerful and it sticks. There's something there that you have to work through afterward.
Yeah.
And we don't begrudge each other any of that or our past, but it is something we've had to work through some of the baggage of. So, not worth it. I love you.
I love you. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is you are responsible for your own health. And I know that's like axiomatic, like you think you should just know that. And people say those kinds of things, like you have to be your own advocate, but it is 100% true. And a 20-year-old probably wouldn't hear it, but if he would, I would go and tell, because I went years of my life knowing that I had a really dangerous chronic disease that there was no cure for, but they were like, here's these pills and it'll reduce your symptoms, the acid stuff specifically, and these pills are safe. And that's all I knew for 20 years. And we're trying to figure out all this health stuff going on with me right now, but
We'll
guys,
link that video up here.
oh, and we'll make a new one soon. But guys, This stuff is just horrible, and you never know what all this is going to do. You go see these doctors and like, oh, you're taking this? Great. And even today, I'm seeing doctors who are recommending things to me that if you go online and look, people get addicted to. And they help you feel better a little bit, but also they like make your brain foggy, and that goes on forever, and then you have to increase the dosage over time. And if I live 50 more years, what am I gonna be like in 50 years of increased brain fog every year? I don't know. Are there other ways I can handle this? Don't ever accept a first opinion if it's something big for your health. Go to a second opinion. If you don't like that, find a third opinion. Ask around. Go online and look for doctors who are willing to just talk to you if you can, because I love doctors. I love folks in the medical field. My wife's in the medical field. But what they give are opinions. They don't usually know 100% for sure, unless it's like obvious. If you have a metal rod sticking out of your arm, hey, you've got a metal rod sticking out of your arm. Okay, well, we can address that. But if you've got a bunch of symptoms for something, what's the best course of treatment for that? How's it going to affect your health? Do you know that the drugs we're putting on right now are going to cause you struggles with weight gain for years? I don't know. These are things we all need to consider, and our health, we only get that once in this life. And I am thankful that I get to spend eternity with the Lord and heaven and all my brothers and sisters in Christ. But guys, I want to spend a long time with my family too. And you think you're invincible, even though people say that and you're like, no, I'm not. You think you're invincible. Until you really have to face your more short-term mortality. So your health matters, and you're the only one who's going to be responsible for it.
Yeah, I definitely, as I've gotten older, we've both done research on a lot of things, but I definitely have started to go down a more natural route with health and everything that goes into our body, everything that we surround ourselves with, because it's true. Like people, 20 years ago, when they recommended you this medicine to take, it was touted as great, like no side effects really, blah, blah, blah. Like it's, awesome. And sometimes it's just that we don't have evidence to know what the effects are in 10, 20, 50 years. And if you start something super early, who knows? Like we just don't know. So no one can actually say, unless there's evidence over the past 100 years where they've done studies on one thing, that it's not going to cause, certain side effects. And so, just thinking about plastics, even like certain medications, we just don't know sometimes. And so I think I've definitely started doing research on different things, and we try to do a more natural approach to even like chemicals that we use in our home and cleaning. And it sometimes is a balance game, and money comes into it sometimes. And especially when you're talking about like eating organically, that it costs more money, like unless you are growing it yourself. But I definitely have gone down that route, and I feel like I would have told my 20-year-old self to research more. I didn't really know the value of researching those types of things when I was 20. And if I would have listened, I would have told myself that too. Something very similar.
But we want to know from you, if you could go back right now and tell your 20-year-old self something, what would it be? Put it down in the comments and let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys. What lessons have you learned in your lives? Or if you're older than us, go back 15 years. What would you have told yourself 15 years ago? But really, comment down below. We'd love to talk with you guys about that. And if we haven't met you yet, we're just glad you're here, and we want you to say hi in the comments and let us know where you're from.
Yeah, we're creating a community so that we can be better together. And if you're older than us, what would you tell us?
Yeah.
Like when you were our age, which is 36 and 35, although he's going to be 36 in a couple of months.
But she's still older.
What would you tell us that if we were to listen today, in 15 years, we would come back and say thank you to you for giving us this advice? Like, we want to know. We want to grow from each other and learn from each other. And subscribe down below if you aren't already. And until we meet again, don't forget,
Life is better together.